Hi again, everybody. It is Victor from PlaybookSports.com, the NFL over under guy for Mark Lawrence's playbook team. We'll do a quick week two review, a quick week three preview, and if time permits, we may even throw in a free play in terms of totals as well. First off, we do want to thank everybody who's joined us on our King Creole service as we have now started the NFL season with an 8-2 documented record with our totals plays. That's 4-0 in week one. We went 4-2 in last week's week two. And again, don't forget all of our selections available each week at playbooksports.com, as is our totals tip sheet newsletter. Issue number 3 comes out this week. It's chock full of over under best bets and totals tidbits. And let's run into what happened last week in the NFL. And man, oh man, it was a complete totals turnaround, almost the exact opposite of what just happened in week one. Remember the first week of the season, 4 overs, 16 unders, only 41 points per game. Guess what happened last week? A complete 180-degree turnaround. 13 overs, 3 unders, shootouts galore in the NFL, even 8 full games. That's half of the games that tallied 50 or more combined points. Again, the official results from last week: 13 overs, only 3 unders. The average over under line was 43.3. Average combined points 49.8. That's 8.8 more points were scored in week two than were scored in week one. It was the most overs, that's 13, in a single week in the entire wild card era. And the over percentage of 81% was the highest average in a single NFL weekend since week four of the 2008 season. That is about 15 years. The only 3 games that went under the total last weekend were the Chiefs versus the Jaguars on Sunday afternoon, the Dolphins versus the Patriots on Sunday night, and the Saints and the Panthers game, which was one of the 2 Monday night games. Of special interest, and I've done the figures here in our totals tip sheet, Sunday's early kickoff games, the 1 o'clock starts, have averaged only 42.2 points per game, but the late kickoff games, the games that start at 4:05 or 4:35 Eastern, those games have averaged 52.1 points per game. So your late afternoon games have averaged 10 more points per game than the early afternoon games. And again, with the primetime games going 2-2, we will point out that those nighttime games in the primetime have still gone 21 overs, 39 unders in the last 2 seasons. That is 65% under the total. So what's it going to be in week three? That is the question everybody's asking. Is it going to be that low scoring result that we saw in week one? Is it going to be that higher scoring result that we saw in week two? Check out this week's Totals Tip Sheet newsletter as we will give you the skinny on what happens in NFL week three. And with that said, we are going to give the ball to our boy Tuco and give him one of his NFL team totals to play this week. And as you know, Tuchel plays a lot of team total over the totals. He went a perfect 2-0 last week in the totals tip sheet. And this week, Tuchel is playing on the Minnesota Vikings to go over their total of 26.5 points as they host the LA Chargers Sunday in the early afternoon kickoffs. US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis was the league's best home over field in the NFL last year. The 10 games played at US Bank Stadium went 8 overs, only 2 went under the total, an average of 54.5 combined points per game. And with numbers like that, I'd like to take some sort of advantage in some way this week. But with the full game OU line on the high side of 54 to 54 and a half, I'm going to leave this one up to Tuco and instead play a team total. And again, it's the Vikings themselves to score over 26.5 points. I know that Minnesota has already had their difficulties turning the ball over in the red zone this season, numerous times in the first two games if you've watched the Vikings. But at the very, very least, this means a positive points regression is in order for the Purple Men. That means potential cheap points. Not only that, but this one sets up very, very well for the best game of the season thus far for quarterback Kirk Cousins and his Minnesota Vikings. After all, look what the visiting Chargers have done on defense in the first two games. That monster game that Tua Tagovailoa had for the Miami Dolphins, in which he averaged 10.7 passing yards per attempt, that's a lot. Even last week, when the Chargers took on Tennessee, they allowed 10.3 passing yards per attempt versus Ryan Tannehill. So we're talking about a team that's already allowed 31.5 points per game in their two games. And obviously, this means a very long and successful day with the deep ball for Kirk Cousins. The clincher from our database, NFL non division home teams averaged 31 points per game on offense last season after playing a Thursday road game. That's what the Vikings did last week. They were on the road on Thursday against Philadelphia. So there you have it. Our free play for the week is Tuco to play on the Minnesota Vikings over their team total of 26 and a half points. That's going to do it for us as far as our little over under segment. Don't forget, all of our King Creole selections, and we're having a hot year in the NFL, are available for purchase at playbooksports.com. In fact, you can even pick the shortcut to the website. Write this down: pb.buzz, that's BUZZ, /VK. That's me, Victor King. You can get to our King Creole homepage with that shortcut. Again, it is pb.buzz/VK. That is your totals wrap up for week 3. Let's get back to the podcast. Best of luck as always this week in the NFL.